everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Improve Your Program Management with the USDA Foods Data Trends Dashboard. This webinar is being recorded, and we will make the recording available on the USDA Foods in Schools partner website. Speaking today, we have Janelle Walker and Christina Riley. I know we have a lot to cover today, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Janelle.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. We are very excited to share the newest version of the USDA Foods Data Trends Tableau Dashboard. Based on the feedback we received from the last demonstration, we have made several updates to incorporate features that will make this dashboard a useful tool for your program. We encourage you to share pieces of this information with school districts, but please do not share the entire dashboard outside of your state agency. Since many of you all have seen the previous dashboard over the last year and may have attended the webinar we hosted, we've decided to conduct this webinar slightly different than before. During the webinar, I will provide an overview of each tab in the dashboard. This will be a high-level summary of the functionality and some general information you can access on each tab. Then, in real time, Christina Riley will use the USDA Foods Data Trends Dashboard to demonstrate specific scenarios that explain the functionality I just summarized. She will also provide a walkthrough of how to apply what is in the dashboard to a real-life application that you can use to enhance your USDA Foods program. So let's get started. The first tab is the Overview page. This tab can be used to show state-level data and national data. The data on each tab can be filtered in many ways. If you remember the previous version of the dashboard, all of the filters were on the Overview page, and whatever filters you selected on that Overview page filtered the data on each tab. In this enhanced version of the dashboard, you will see that each tab has its own set of filters, so you can filter the data differently on each tab. Here's a quick overview of the filters. The first filter allows you to filter the data by state. Right now, all of the states are selected, so we are looking at national data. However, you can use this filter to select a specific state or states to view. The next filter is the school year filter. The data presented in this dashboard is for school years 2015 through 2018. The next filter is the data by program filter. The different programs include USDA Foods Bulk, USDA Foods Direct Delivery, and USDA DoD Fresh. The next filter, spending level, is the amount of entitlement a state receives. This filter is divided into 6 levels and will allow you to see how states that receive a similar amount in entitlement spend their funds. Moving on, you can also filter by food groups such as dairy. You can filter a little further down with food subgroups such as cheese, and you can filter to the lowest level food type, and an example of that is mozzarella cheese. The very last tab in the dashboard labeled Food Category provides an overview of how each USDA food is categorized. Lastly, I want to point out the bold red X above the filters. Use this X to reset your filters at any time. Now that we've reviewed the filters, let's take a closer look at the tab. The map in the top left shows a national overview of the dollar value of USDA food purchases for all programs for all school years. If you hover over a state, you will be able to see specific information for that state. Remember, the data is comprehensive for all school years and all programs. You must use the filters to retrieve information specific to a certain school year or program. The bar graph in the top right displays the dollar value of USDA foods, the pounds, number of products, and price per pound for each program. The bar graph in the bottom left displays the dollar value, pounds, and price per pound by food group. And finally, the visualization in the bottom right displays the percent of purchases by food group. If you hover over each food group, you will be able to access more information. Now I'm going to turn it over to Christina to review a scenario and practical application for this tab.
Thank you, Mel. So to show you how you might use the information on this particular page, we are going to show you how to select a state and see how the information changes. Currently, as Janelle mentioned, this is showing you nationwide data, but if you unselect all states by clicking on the All checkbox, and then you select the state that you're interested in. So right now, we're going to look at the state of Missouri. So you can see that now this is showing information that is specific to the state of Missouri. It, again, as Janelle mentioned, it does show the information across all 4 school years. So it is a cumulative dollar value weighed in pounds, for example, but then at the bottom you can see the breakdown by the various food groups. So if we were interested in just seeing information for the most recent school year, which is school year 18, we would unclick the All under the Year tab. Then we would select school year 18. So this now is showing you Missouri's purchases for school year 18. So you can see that proteins is their largest purchase category with about 44.6% of the total dollar value. You can also see the number of products that were offered by food category or program, as we call it, in this dashboard by looking across this tab. So there's a lot of great information that's presented on this page. But to think about how you might use this in your daily work at the state level, particularly now since it's the ordering season, we want to reset this page and show you a way that you could use this page for your benefit. So let's say that you have gotten some orders in from your state that people are interested in purchasing frozen spinach, but you don't quite have enough to make a full truckload. So perhaps you're interested in splitting with a neighboring state. This information could be used by seeing which states actually have purchased this product in the past. So what you could do to find that information would be to go to the Food Type tab. Again, you need to unselect All, then you would scroll down to Spinach. So what you see here makes it look like pretty much all of the states in the United States are purchasing spinach. But what we know is that actually there are 2 different options to purchase spinach. We have USDA Foods direct delivery, but we also have USDA DoD Fresh. So splitting a truck won't work for DoD Fresh. So we're going to need to unselect that option. So now you see the states are disappearing in the map to show you that these states that are still highlighted are states that have previously brought in frozen spinach through the USDA Foods direct delivery program. So then you could see if there's a neighboring state, call that state, and try to arrange to share the truck. So that's just one practical application. I'm going to turn it over to Janelle to talk through our next tab.
All right, thanks, Christina. So moving on to the next tab, which is Product Form. The Product Form tab has a similar layout as the Overview tab, but the main difference is that the data is analyzed by product form. Product form is divided into 4 categories: bulk, canned dry goods, fresh, and frozen. The purchases by form, which is shown in the bar graph in the bottom left, is further analyzed to display the food types that are associated with each product form. These specific food types can be found in the Types of Food section in the bottom right. They look like little bubbles. The colors of the bars in the bar graph in the bottom left correspond with the bubbles in the Types of Food section in the bottom right. If we take a quick look at the screen, bulk items represent 41.5% of the total dollar value of USDA Foods purchased nationwide for all school years. If you look at the Types of Food section, ground beef and whole chicken, which are in blue, made up a significant portion of bulk items purchased. So let's check in with Christina to show us how to drill down further into this data.
Great, thanks, Janelle. So what you're seeing right now is the nationwide breakdown by bulk, canned and dry goods, fresh, and frozen. But let's see how that looks when we look at an individual state's data. So we're going to pull up the state of Maine. So what you can see here with the state of Maine is that we actually had quite a change when we look at the state of Maine, and we see that a majority of their purchases are frozen, which is quite different from the national average. So this just helps you to better understand how your state's purchasing patterns may compare to the national average. There's no right or wrong way to purchase USDA foods, but it may be helpful in your decision making. So let's talk about a practical application here of how you can use this information. So we'll reset this page. Let's say that we are in the state of Vermont, and we're interested in determining how many unique warehouse slots we would need for USDA Foods dry, frozen, and refrigerated products because we're renegotiating a warehouse contract. So let's take a look at this information and see if there's anything that we can find that would be helpful. So now what you can see is the breakdown for this state. So you can see the overall percentages that are committed to the various types of food. For storage purposes, it's important to note that you would need a significant amount of frozen storage to accommodate the state of Vermont. But let's actually drill down to the most recent school year because maybe that's the most relevant information for this question. So let's take a look at school year 18, where we can see, again, the difference between the canned and dry goods, fresh and frozen. But we may say, well, we're not storing USDA DoD Fresh through the warehouse. So we would want to uncheck USDA DoD Fresh because that's being delivered directly to school districts. So now you can see how that shift looks when you're looking at your total storage needs for foods that came into the state of Vermont for school year 18. So that's one practical way to use this tab. And now we're going to move on to our next tab, which is purchases by year.
Thanks, Christina. The Purchases by Year tab provides an overview of purchases across all 4 school years. The line graph in the top left shows the dollar value of purchases for each food group across each school year, while the line graph in the top right shows the pounds purchased for each food group across all 4 school years. There is significant value in seeing this data presented this way because it will help you determine if changes are being driven by fluctuations in price or in the amount of product that is ordered. Both of the line graphs display the trends that have occurred from year to year. One thing to note about the line graphs is that the scale on the y-axis is dynamic. This means that it will show variation visually, even if the trends may be slight. The bar graph in the bottom left displays the average price per pound for each food group for each school year. Similar to the previous tabs, you can use the filters to drill down to the food type level. This chart also shows the price fluctuation over time. Lastly, the chart in the bottom right, number of products purchased, displays the number of products that were purchased in each food group. If we take a quick glance nationally across all school years, more unique products and vegetables were purchased than any other food group. So Christina, can you tell us a little bit more about this tab?
Yes. So let's take a look at how we might use this tab at the state level. Let's pretend that we are the state of Arkansas, and we are interested in looking at our purchasing patterns over the course of 4 years. So what you can see here in this tab is that it appears as if there was a decrease in purchases of proteins while simultaneously seeing an increase in purchasing of fruits between school year 15 and 16. But that's by dollar value. When you actually look at the information by weight, you can see that the proteins were relatively stable. But what you see in the graph down here is that the average price per pound was decreasing over time, which is why it appears that there was a decrease in spending. There was an overall decrease in spending, though the category was still relatively stable. However, what you do see is that there is a fairly significant increase in the overall weight of fruits or the overall amount of fruits that were brought into the state between school year 15 and 16. So now let's show a practical application. So we are the state of Mississippi. The Mississippi State Department of Agriculture is interested in how much catfish Mississippi schools are ordering through USDA Foods, because that's an agricultural product that is raised in that state. So let's take a look and see if we can figure out that information. So first, we want to select the state of Mississippi. And then next, we want to select catfish. So we're going to select in the product type, catfish. So what you can see is, oops, I actually reset the state. Let's go back and see Mississippi. So what you can see is the purchases over the course of 4 years. You will notice on this tab that the scale is dynamic, meaning that it changes depending on what is being measured and what is being shown. So while there's only a change of 80,000 pounds here on the weight tab, it looks fairly significant because of the way that it's displayed. But this information would allow you to hover over each individual school year tab to collect the information about the total volume of catfish that was purchased from Mississippi schools through the USDA Foods program. Let's go to our next tab. I'm sorry, actually we're going to go to our poll questions. So we have a few poll questions at this point. I'm going to turn it over to Janelle.
All right, thanks, Christina. So I just want to see if everyone's checked in. Based on what you have seen so far, how would you use this data in your work? So select all of the responses that apply. We'll give you about 5 seconds. It looks like 31% of people would like to report information on USDA Foods. 42% would like to use the system to forecast USDA food orders. 22% said they would use it to train new staff. 33% said they would use it to help with management of new or existing warehouse inventory. So thank you all to those who have responded. Let's go ahead and continue to move on to our next tab, which is the Comparison tab. The Comparison tab is actually a new tab in the USDA Foods Data Trends dashboard. This tab was added based on feedback we received during the webinar we hosted for states last year. So as you can see, this tab is a little different from the previous 3 tabs. So the purpose of this tab is to allow the user to compare data. The filters for this tab are at the top of the screen. When using this tab, the first thing you want to do is select the measure you want to compare. So do you want to compare the dollar value of USDA Foods or the pounds of USDA Foods? Once you identify the measure that you want to compare, you can use the remaining filters, food group, food subgroup, and food type to further drill down to the data you would like to see. In the box right beneath the filters, you will find additional filters to select the specific information you would like to compare. This tab is designed to compare data on the left to data on the right. On the left side of the box, you can select the state, school year, program, or spending level to compare, and the same filters are found on the right side. Once you select your desired filters, the data will be displayed below. The first section, Purchases by Food Group, will be displayed based on the measure you selected above, whether that was purchases by dollar value or purchases by pounds. The data will be displayed in a bar chart based on the additional filters, the food group, food subgroup, or food type selected. Similar to the previous tab, the scale on the x-axis is dynamic, so this means that it will show variation visually, even if the trend is slight. Below Purchases by Food Group, you will find a pie chart with purchases by program. Again, this will be displayed based on the measure originally selected, either dollar value or pounds. The pie chart will adjust to display the percentage each program represents based on the filters selected. So overall, you are comparing the data displayed on the left with the data displayed on the right. So Christina, can you show us more?
Sure. So let's take a look at the state of North Dakota. So what you see right now in this comparison tab is North Dakota's spending compared to the national spending. So you can see in the bar charts, there are quite different numbers, 4.4 million versus many million nationally. So what you can see in the breakdown of the pie chart also will show the comparison of the state of North Dakota to the national data. But the state of North Dakota and other small states are unique. So they may want to compare themselves to another state or states that fall within their spending category based on entitlement level. So let's compare the state of North Dakota to other similar states. So let's look at states that are also have less than $10 million in entitlement. So what you can see actually is that in the original pie chart, there was quite a difference between North Dakota's spending breakdown versus the national average. But when you look at North Dakota compared to states of similar spending levels, you see that their breakdown is relatively similar to those other states. So this is a way to take a look at your state as compared to the other states. But again, please note that this is cumulative, so this is not actually showing North Dakota's spending compared to one other state when we look at it like this. It's looking at the spending across all states. So for example, if we did want to just select one other state, we could compare to the state of Montana, because we do know Montana is relatively close. They also have similar spending patterns. So now you can see a more even comparison across the individual food groups to see how these two states compare in their USDA food spending. So let's do an application here. So let's clear out this data. Let's say that you're a state that recently rolled down WebSCM, such as the state of Colorado, and you want to compare the purchases before the roll down with purchases after the roll down. So let's compare. Let's select the state of Colorado. For this, we would need to select a year before the roll down. So let's say school year 16. Then for the comparison, we would also select the state of Colorado. And we're going to select school year 18. So now you can see the shifts in spending between the purchases before and after the roll down of WebSCM to school districts. So what you see is that the fruits did increase slightly, but the other food categories did remain relatively stable. You also can see that the breakdown by program also remained relatively stable. So we can just see what those changes are between the before and after WebSCM roll down by using this comparison tab. So let's move on to our next tab, which is direct delivery orders.
The Direct Delivery Orders and Vendors tab provides an overview of direct delivery orders only. As you see, the filters on the left remain the same as the filters that are found on the first three tabs. However, the map displays purchases by truckload. If you hover over any state on the map, the dashboard will display additional information, including the number of truckloads that state has purchased. The bar chart in the top right displays the number of vendors who sold that item and the dollar value purchased. Right now, the bar graphs represent food groups. However, if you use the filters to drill down to a specific food group, like beef, you will see different forms of beef that are offered. The bar chart at the bottom, direct delivery truckloads by order period, displays a breakdown of the number of trucks by order period, which we have broken down as the first half of the month and the second half of the month. So let's turn it over to Christina.
Great. So what you can see right now in this chart is the peaks and valleys of USDA Foods orders on a national level. You've heard us many times talk about spreading out your orders over the course of the school year to make the ordering easier for the industry to accommodate and easier for states and school districts to get what they want when they want it. So let's take a look at an individual state's ordering patterns to see how we match up with the national data and to see if there's anything that we can do at the state level to balance out our ordering. So let's take a look at the state of Minnesota. So in Minnesota, it looks like they're doing a pretty good job of keeping their orders balanced throughout the year. You don't see that same peak and valley that you saw in the national data. So this is a great way to check your state against what others are doing, and to look perhaps at the months where there are fewer orders and see if it's possible to shift some of your orders to those time periods to make it more likely that you would get your order when you want it versus having such high demand on certain vendors during certain time periods. So let's do an application. Let's say that our warehouse contract wants us to estimate the amount of product that will be arriving into the warehouse and when it might be arriving. So what we could use this data for is to show the 4-year average. Let's say that we are in the state of New Mexico. The important thing to note for this is that this is only direct delivery truckloads. So you don't have the filter by program as you had in some of the other tabs, because you would need to filter out DoD and processing foods because they're not coming into the warehouse. This one you don't need to do that, it's already displayed in that way. So if you were in this state and you were trying to provide some information to your warehouse, you could see the total number of truckloads that's displayed here in the top screen. But then at the bottom, you can see the breakdown of truckloads that are received by ordering period. This could provide a good estimate for your warehouse to know what to plan on. So let's move into our next tab, which is USDA DoD Fresh purchases.
The USDA DoD Fresh purchases provides an overview of fruit and vegetable purchases through the USDA DoD Fresh program only. Most of the filters on the left are the same, except we've added a filter for state of origin, source of fruit and vegetable, and product form. The state of origin filter allows you to see purchases that had one state of origin identified, multiple states of origin identified, or no states of origin identified by the vendor. Please note that identifying a state of origin was not required by vendors until last year. The source of fruit and vegetable filter is used to identify the state that a specific product originated from. Therefore, if you want to see all if you want to see all purchases for products that came from California, you can use this filter to see that. The map will adjust to show the states that purchased those products from California. The product form tab lets you see products by form, and we define form as fresh, whole, or pre-cut. The map in the top left shows USDA DoD Fresh purchases by dollar value. The bar graph in the top right shows a breakdown of the dollar value, pounds, and number of products for all USDA DoD Fresh products, and that's broken down to have either one state of origin, multiple states of origin, or no state of origin. The purchases by type section provides an overview of the percent of total dollar value, percent of total weight, price per pound, number of varieties, and number of products for fruits and vegetables. Similar to the other tabs, you can drill down to the food type level to see this specific information. In the bottom right, you can view the types of items that were ordered through USDA DoD Fresh. The larger the circle, the more that product contributes by dollar value. Lastly, the source of fruits and vegetables with one state of origin is at the bottom on the screen. This section allows you to see the specific items that were identified as having one state of origin and the state it came from. If you use the source of fruit and vegetable filter on the left, you can also see this information.
Okay, let's take a look at a state purchase and see what we might find. We are going to look at the state of Washington. So here you see Washington's information displayed. As Janelle mentioned, there is a lot of great information shown about the breakdown of fruits and vegetables, as well as the types of produce that are being purchased in the highest dollar value. So you can see in the state of Washington, the highest dollar value purchases are apples, oranges, and strawberries for the fruits. And then on the vegetable side, it includes carrots, lettuce, and salad mixes. So the size of the bubble indicates the size of the amount of the purchases over that time period. Also at the bottom is going to show us all the various states that Washington received produce from. So you can see that the majority of purchases made by the state of Washington were labeled with one clear state of origin. So we were able to look at quite a bit of data. So if we were interested in understanding how much of the DoD Fresh produce that came into the state of Washington was also grown in the state of Washington or originated from the state of Washington, we would look at the source of F&V tab. So here it's only going to display the states that have supplied DoD Fresh produce to that state. We would select the state of Washington. And what we are seeing now is the state of Washington received this produce from a source that was in the state of Washington. And no surprise here, we see that apples is the largest local purchase by dollar value, followed by pears. But you also see that there were some vegetables that were purchased from in the state as well, with the largest dollar value being towards potatoes. So let's move on to our next tab, which is the bulk and direct delivery products.
And this is our last tab of data, so let's jump right into it. The bulk and direct delivery products tab shows data on only bulk and direct delivery products. It does not include USDA DoD Fresh data. The filters on the left are similar to the filters on several of the previous tabs. However, on this tab, we've added two additional filters, one for product and one for materials. The product filter is a list of all USDA foods available by their WebSCM material description name. The material filter is a list of all USDA foods available by the material code. This tab allows you to see the number of truckloads, dollar value, and pounds down to the material code level. The map shows bulk and direct delivery orders by truckload. If you hover over the map, you can see how many truckloads a state ordered, as well as the associated purchase amount, pounds, and number of products. The bar graph on the right, purchases by program, displays the number of truckloads, dollar value, and pounds for both USDA Foods bulk and USDA Foods direct delivery programs. Lastly, the chart at the bottom shows the number of truckloads delivered based on the filter selected. The chart displays the material description, material code, and the number of truckloads ordered for each school year, which is school years 15 through 18. A quick note is that if you see a blank entry, it means that the product was not available through USDA Foods. However, if you see a 0, that means that the product was available but not ordered. So I'll have Christina walk us through our last scenario.
Okay, let's take a look at orders through the state of Georgia. So what you can see here, as Janelle mentioned, is We see the overall truckloads, dollar value, and weight in pounds over the course of the 4 school years that are reflected. So if we were interested in just seeing the most recent school year 18, we would want to select that. And the data would be adjusted accordingly. So, okay, so let's move into our application. Let's stay with the state of Georgia and say that we are looking to provide some data to our advisory committee to make decisions about USDA Foods orders using historical information. So what you can do is click on the number of truckloads delivered section at the bottom. You see that it pulls up this little gray box to the right. If you click on the little arrow and pull up more options, and then go to Sheet, this is going to export this data, or give you the option to export the data, rather. Next, you would need to go to the Data tab. Next, you need to go to the Worksheet tab, go to the Export section, and you can export data cross-tab to Excel, which will take it into Excel, which is probably the most likely way you would want to use the data. If you go to Export Data, it will export it into a Microsoft Access table. So either way, you could get this as a table that then you could print out and present to your advisory committee so that they could use the data for purchases over the last 4 school years to inform their decisions for the upcoming school year. So let's move into our next set of polling questions.
All right, everyone, this is our last set of polling questions before we open up the line for Q&A. What can we do to help you use this system successfully? If you could just let us know, whether that's host another webinar, provide individual training, offer training for small groups, create written manuals, develop case studies. We'll give you a few more seconds to respond. We hope you enjoyed the presentation as much as we enjoyed working with the data. We've had a couple of comments come in that this dashboard is exciting and folks are interested in sharing it with their stakeholders. So we are very excited to hear that you think it's just as exciting as we think it is. So let's take a peek at the poll results. It looks like the majority of people on the line would like some type of written manual, so that's about 21% of the responses. 14% of the responses would like some type of case study or application. And then I would say the next one was about 7% said host another webinar. So thank you so much. These responses are helpful, and we will look to see what we can do. So I'm going to pass this over to Katie.
All right. Thanks, Christina and Janelle, for providing some very important information about using the USDA Foods Data Trends Dashboard. I have opened up the webinar evaluation questions poll as well, if you could just take a few minutes to fill that out. We are going to do a question and answer portion.
I do want to encourage you to use pieces of the data to share with your advisory councils, to pull screenshots if it's relevant for your trainings, to show people within the state some of these trends and some of the information that's available. We just want to make sure that you're only sharing pieces of the information as relevant, not the entire dashboard.
All right, thanks, Christina. Question is, when will school year 19 information be available, Christina?
That is a great question. So this project was a limited time period. It was based on a USDA contract. So we currently do not have a contract in place to update this with school year 19 information. However, we are working on a lot of options and a lot of alternatives to ensure that we can still share information with all of the states. But we would love to hear feedback from all of you about what are the most relevant pieces of this so that we can figure out a way to make sure that we still get this information to you so it can be used by your state for training, for decisions at the state level about what to order, and for communication with other states about the things that they're doing and how they're managing their programs.
All right, thanks, Christina.
And I know Janelle mentioned this in the beginning, but I do want to emphasize that many of the changes to the dashboard this year were made based on the feedback that we received last year during the webinar. So we certainly want to hear from you. We want to know what's working, what's not working, what the most useful pieces of information are, so that we can figure out how to keep this work going.
Thanks, Christina. And also, this webinar was recorded, and we will make the recording available on the USDA Foods and School Partner website for your viewing pleasure if you need a refresher.